I'm 97 years old, and remembering everything clearly has nothing to do with pills or doctors. It comes from two habits. It is so simple most people ignore them. I was raised on a tobacco farm in rural Virginia. I'm a mother of 6, grandmother of 19, great-grandmother of 31. And I still remember every name of every grandchild and great-grandchild, all 50 of them, and what they ordered at Christmas dinner last year. That is not luck. That is not a pill. And I am here to tell you plain. My name is Estelle Mae Hargrove. I buried my husband Raymond in 1991. I buried my sister Dot in 2004. I buried my best friend Loretta just 2 years back. They all went before me. Most of them couldn't remember where they left their keys by the time they were 70. I watched it happen, slow and sad, like watching a candle burn down. And I thought, Lord, don't let that be me. Now, I am not a doctor. I want to say that right now. I have never been to medical school, but I am still here, and that counts for something. My grandmother, Nana Celia, she lived to 92 on a dirt farm with no electricity and no pharmacy for 30 miles. She told me one thing every single morning when I was small. She said, Estelle, before you eat a bite, before you say a word, before the rooster even finishes crowing, you drink your water, a full glass, cold as the well gives it. I thought that was old country foolishness for years. I am ashamed to say it, but I did. I drank my coffee first thing like everybody else, and in my 50s I noticed my mornings felt foggy. Not sick, just slow, like trying to think through wet wool. I would forget what I walked into a room for. I would lose words mid-sentence, reach for a name or a place and find nothing but air. Then one summer, I remember it was a July, hot as a Dutch oven, I started doing what Nana Celia had told me to do 30 years before. 1 glass of cold water, the moment my feet hit the floor. Before the coffee, before the toast, before a word to anyone. Within 2 weeks, I felt different. Not dramatic, not like a miracle, just cleaner up here in my head. Like somebody had opened a window in a stuffy room and let the morning in. The fog lifted. The words came back. I stopped standing in doorways, not knowing why I had come. A body is like a creek. After a whole night of sleeping, that creek has run low. The brain is mostly water. Science will tell you that now. And Nana Celia knew it before science got around to catching up. You would not try to run a mill with no water in the creek. Don't try to run your mind that way either. Drink your water first, every single morning, cold and full, and before anything else. The second thing I want to tell you about is light, morning light, not from a lamp, not from a television screen or a telephone, the real thing, from the sun. The actual sun coming up over the tree line and landing on your face. I know how that sounds. I know you are thinking, Estelle, that is too simple. That cannot possibly matter. That is what I thought too. For most of my life, I thought that, and I was wrong. My friend Curtis, God rest that man. Curtis was one of the sharpest people I ever knew in my life. He worked numbers at the railroad for 40 years and never once made an error that anybody could find. He could do arithmetic in his head faster than most people could find a pencil. He remembered train schedules, cargo weights, names of every conductor on every line. A brilliant man, a warm man. We used to sit on his porch on Sunday afternoons and talk for hours. But by 81, he started to fade. It happened quietly at first. He stopped going outside, said his hips hurt, and they did. I know they did. Said the porch was too cold in the mornings. Said the television kept him company. I visited Curtis twice a month and watched him sitting in that dim parlor with the curtains half drawn, the television going from breakfast until noon. The room was always gray, always still, always the same temperature and the same dim light. Within 3 years, he did not know my name. He looked at me, a woman he had known for 40 years, and there was nothing, no flicker of recognition, just a polite, empty smile. I sat with him and held his hand and cried all the way home in my car. I am not saying the light was everything. Curtis had his health troubles too, but I am saying he stopped getting morning light and he stopped being Curtis around the same time. And I do not think that is a coincidence. I walk out on my porch every single morning, 7 days a week. Rain means I stand at the open door with my face turned toward the gray sky. I let that early light, even cloud-covered light, hit my face for at least 10 minutes. My granddaughter Patrice thinks it is an old woman quirk. She takes a video of me sometimes and laughs. She'll understand one day. I pray she understands before she needs to. My mistake was years and years of waking up and heading straight to the kitchen, staying inside, pulling the curtains against the early cold, never letting real daylight touch me until 10 or 11 in the morning when the sun was already high. I felt heavy on those mornings, unmotivated, like something in me hadn't fully switched on yet. Some mornings it was genuinely hard to string my thoughts together into a proper sentence before noon. The turning point came when my neighbor Mabel, she was 84 and sharp as a new tack. She came to my door one April morning while the dew was still heavy on the grass. She said, "Estelle, come outside with me, just for a minute." I grumbled. I had my coffee cup in my hand. But Mabel was not a woman you said no to easily. We stood at the edge of her yard together, and the light was thin and gold and very new, the way early April light is when winter is just barely finished. And it hit me right across the face and the chest like a warm hand laid gently on you by someone who loves you. That morning I felt alert in a way I had not felt in a very long time. Something woke up inside me that had been half asleep for years. A body is like a garden. It needs light to know what time of day it is, what season it is, what it is supposed to be doing. Your brain sets its whole internal clock by light. It tells every system in your body when to wake up and be sharp and alive. Scientists call it something long that I cannot pronounce. But the old farmers in our county just said, let the sun find you early and it'll carry you through the day. So drink your water, stand in your light. 2 things, no prescription, no pharmacy, just you in the morning, doing what God and nature intended. I want to tell you about walking, not running, not a gym, not any kind of exercise that costs money or requires a special pair of shoes or a membership card. Just walking on your own 2 feet, down whatever road or path God put outside your door. I have walked every single day of my life since I was a girl on that tobacco farm in Virginia. We walked everywhere because there was no other way to get there. We walked to school, walked to church, walked to the neighbors' farms, walked to the creek on hot summer evenings just to stand in the cold water and feel our feet again. Walking was just life. When I got older and the world got more convenient, when there was a car in the driveway and a grocery store 10 minutes away, I started driving everywhere, like most people do, like most people are doing right now. And I noticed something happening to me in my late 50s, not to my legs, to my head. My thinking got slower. My afternoons got foggier. I would sit down after lunch and feel like something in my mind had gone to a half-speed setting that I could not find the dial for. I thought it was age. I thought it was just what happened. My friend Winifred, she was a retired school teacher from over in the next county, a woman I admired greatly. Winifred walked 3 miles every morning until she was 89 years old. Every morning, rain, cold, heat. She put on her shoes and went. I asked her once how she kept her mind so sharp. She looked at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world and said, Estelle, the legs are the pump. You stop pumping and everything upstairs stops flowing. That stayed with me. The legs are the pump. I went back to walking. Started with just down the road and back maybe 15 minutes. My hips complained. My knees complained. I told them both to hush and kept going. Within a month, I was doing 45 minutes every morning, same as I do now. And the afternoon fog lifted. The slow thinking cleared. Ideas came back. Memories connected themselves more easily. I felt present in my own mind in a way I had been missing for years. I also started doing something Nana Celia used to do on her walks. She talked out loud to herself, to the fields, to the Lord, to whoever might be listening. She recited Bible verses she had memorized. She named the wildflowers. She counted her steps in groups of 10. She kept her mind active while her legs kept moving. I do the same thing. I run through the names of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I recite recipes I have made 100 times. I talk through problems I am chewing on. A brain without movement is like a creek that has been dammed up. Things settle. Things go stagnant. Things start to smell wrong. But a brain fed by a walking body, by blood moving and pumping and circulating, that brain stays clear and running the way a creek runs after a good rain. Science tells us now that walking increases blood flow to the brain and even grows new brain cells in the memory center. Winifred knew that without ever reading a single study. The legs are the pump. Keep them moving. Now, I need to talk about something that most people do not think of as a memory habit. They think of it as a personality trait, something you either have or you don't. I am talking about worry, chronic, daily, unrelenting worry. And I am here to tell you that worry is one of the cruelest things you can do to an aging mind. I know worry. I was raised around it. My mother was a worrier. Her mother before her was a worrier. They worried about the crops, the weather, the money, the children, the health, the neighbors, the government, the next thing, and the thing after that. It was like the radio in the house that never got turned off, just a low, constant hum of dread underneath everything. And I carried that habit into my own life. After Raymond died, I worried about money. After my son Thomas moved far away, I worried about him. After my health started shifting in my 70s, I worried about that. I would lie awake at 3 a.m. running the same fears around and around in my head like a dog chasing its own tail, going nowhere, getting nowhere, just wearing itself out on the same circle. My friend Harriet Lord, I loved Harriet. Harriet was the biggest worrier I ever knew personally. She worried the way some people breathe constantly, automatically, without even noticing she was doing it. She was a brilliant woman. Read everything, remembered everything. Sharp as anyone I knew through her 60s. But the worry was always there, always running, always churning. By 78, her memory was in pieces. Names fell out of it, dates, sequences. She would tell me the same story twice in one afternoon and not know she had done it. The doctors said one thing and another. But I sat with Harriet through those years and I watched that worry grind her mind down the way water grinds down stone, slow, relentless, and permanent. The turning point for me came on a Sunday morning when I sat down at my kitchen table with a piece of paper and a pencil and I wrote down every single thing I was worried about, every one. I filled most of a page, and then I drew a line down the middle of that page. On the left side, I wrote, things I can do something about today. On the right side, things I cannot. Almost everything was on the right side. Almost everything I had been losing sleep over was completely beyond my power to change on any given morning. I folded that paper and put it in the kitchen drawer. I said out loud to myself and to whoever else might be listening, I am done carrying what I cannot change. I will handle what I can handle, and I will leave the rest where it belongs. It did not happen all at once. Worry is a stubborn habit, but over months it loosened its grip, and as it did, my sleep improved, my mornings cleared, my memory sharpened in ways I had stopped expecting. Worry is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it never takes you anywhere. And while you sit in it, your brain is soaking in stress, real chemical stress that eats at the very parts of your mind that hold your memories and your clarity. Science confirms this now. But I learned it the hard way at my kitchen table with a pencil and a piece of paper. Put the worry down, not forever, just for today, just for this morning. That is enough to start. I want to talk about food, real food, not the kind that comes in a crinkly package with a list of ingredients so long you need your glasses and a dictionary. I mean food that came out of the ground, or off a vine, or from an animal that lived like it was supposed to live. Food your great-grandmother would recognize without squinting at it. Nana Celia never ate anything that came from a factory. She could not have. There were no factories making food near where she lived. She grew her own vegetables, kept her own chickens, put up her own preserves, every fall in glass jars lined up on the cellar shelf like soldiers. She made her own bread. She cooked her own beans from dry. She used every part of every animal and every plant, and she never wasted a thing. And she was sharp until her final week on this earth. I started buying convenience food in my 60s. I am ashamed to say it, but I did. My children were grown and gone, and cooking for one felt like too much trouble. I bought canned soups, packaged crackers, bread from a bag with a list of things on the label I could not pronounce. I told myself it was fine. It was just easier. But I noticed slow, like fog coming in off the low fields at night, that my thinking felt heavier. My recall was not what it had been. I blamed age. I blamed being alone. I blamed everything except what I was putting in my mouth 3 times a day. My daughter Clara came to visit one autumn and opened my pantry and stood there for a long, quiet moment. Then she said, "Mama, half of this isn't food." That hurt, but she was not wrong. She stayed for 2 weeks and cooked with me every day the way Nana Celia used to cook. Eggs from a neighbor's hens scrambled in real butter. Soup made from scratch with bone broth and fresh vegetables. Cornbread baked in a cast iron skillet. Dried beans cooked slow with a ham hock. Simple things, honest things. Within 2 months of eating that way again, I felt a difference in my head that I can only describe as cleaner, lighter, like something had been swept out that had been sitting in there getting in the way. I also stopped putting sugar in my coffee. That one was hard. I had taken 2 spoons every cup for 50 years. But I noticed that within an hour of my sweet breakfast, things would cloud over in my mind, a heaviness, a sluggishness that I had blamed on everything else for years. I took the sugar out, and the afternoon fog nearly disappeared. Real food feeds the brain the way clean water feeds a garden. Packaged food full of things your body was never designed to process is like watering your garden with something that looks like water but isn't. Things might survive for a while, but they do not thrive, and eventually they stop. Cook from scratch when you can. Eat things you can name. Eat things your grandmother would recognize. That is the whole instruction. It does not need to be complicated because it was never supposed to be complicated. People brag about not needing sleep. I have heard it my whole life. 5 hours is plenty. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Sleep is for the lazy. I want to look those people in the eye and say you are paying for that bravado with your mind. You just cannot see the bill yet. Sleep is not rest. Sleep is not just lying down because you are tired. Sleep is the time when your brain does the most important work it does all day. It sorts through everything that happened. It files the memories it wants to keep. And this is the part that astonishes me even now. It actually cleans itself, washes out the waste that built up while you were awake and thinking and living. Without enough sleep, that waste builds up. And built up waste in the brain is exactly what it sounds like. My friend Florence, lovely woman, one of the brightest I knew, Florence was a night owl her whole life, said she came alive after dark. Said she did her best thinking between 10 at night and 2 in the morning. She was proud of it, bragged about it the same way people brag about working too hard. She was getting 4 or 5 hours most nights and called it enough. By 77, her memory was crumbling. By 82, she did not know what year it was most days. I am not saying sleep was the only reason. But I am saying Florence chose to deprive her brain of the one time of day when it could clean and repair itself for 50 years, and her brain showed the result of that choice. After Raymond died, I could not sleep properly for almost 2 years. Grief does that. It sits on your chest at 3 in the morning and will not move. I was getting 4 hours some nights, 5 on a good one. And I felt it in everything. My thinking was slow. My words were slippery. I forgot appointments. I lost objects. I told my doctor, and he offered me something to help me sleep, a pill, and I took it for a while, but it did not give me real sleep. It gave me unconsciousness. There is a difference. What finally helped was a set of habits I built around bedtime. I stopped eating after 6 in the evening. I turned off every light except one small lamp by 8 o'clock. I stopped letting any worry or problem into my bedroom. I left it at the door, same as you leave your muddy shoes. I opened the window a crack for cool air, even in winter. And I lay down in the dark with my hands folded and I talked to God quietly until sleep came. Within a month, I was sleeping 7 hours most nights. And the change in my thinking was not subtle. It was profound. Words came back. Sequences made sense. I remembered things I thought had gone for good. A brain given proper sleep is like a house given a proper cleaning. Everything works better. Everything is easier to find. Everything functions the way it was designed to function. Do not rob your brain of its cleaning time. Go to bed. Sleep in the dark. Sleep long. It is not laziness. It is the most important thing you can do for your mind after the sun goes down. When I was a girl on that Virginia tobacco farm, nobody sat idle, not for a minute, not if they could help it. There was always something to do with your hands: seeding, stringing, cooking, sewing, mending, building, fixing, growing. The hands were always moving, and the mind moved right along with them. I sewed my first quilt at age 7, sitting beside my Aunt Vera on her porch on Saturday afternoons. I have been sewing and quilting and knitting ever since. 88 years of working with my hands. And I truly believe in my bones that this is one of the reasons I can still think as clearly as I can at 97. Now I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, Estelle, I am not a quilter. I am not a knitter. I don't do crafts, and that is fine. That is absolutely fine. This is not about quilts. This is about keeping your hands doing something real, something that requires your brain to be present and paying attention every single day. My neighbor Harold, he was a carpenter, built furniture by hand his whole working life. Harold kept working in his shop well into his 80s. Little things, birdhouses, repairs around the house, whittling in the evenings on his porch. His hands were always moving, always making. Harold was 91 years old when he died, and he was sharp and present and himself until the very last month. I stopped quilting for about 3 years in my late 70s. My eyes were giving me trouble, and I told myself I would rest from it for a while, just a while. And during those 3 years, I noticed it. I noticed it clearly. My thinking felt less connected. Like the pathways between things in my mind were getting overgrown from lack of use. I lost my train of thought more. I repeated myself more. Small things, but I noticed. The turning point came when my granddaughter Adele asked me to teach her to quilt. She was 17, and she sat across from me at the frame, and I had to think through every step, choosing the pattern, cutting the pieces, matching the colors, counting the stitches, keeping the tension even. My brain woke up in a way it had not in 3 years. Within a week of quilting again, I felt more like myself, working with the hands, calls on the eyes, the fingers, the memory, the planning mind, the creative mind, the problem-solving mind all at once. It is a full brain activity dressed up in simple clothes. You are counting and planning and remembering and creating and correcting your mistakes all at the same time. The brain loves this kind of work. It was made for it. Knit something, grow something, build something, fix something, learn a new stitch or a new recipe or a new way to tie a knot. Keep your hands in it. Keep your mind required. The moment you give yourself full permission to be purely idle, to sit and receive without doing, the mind begins to drift. Don't let it drift. Give it something to hold on to. The loneliest I ever felt in my life was the winter after Raymond died. The children had their own lives and their own families, and they could not be there every day, and I understood that. But the house was so quiet, I could hear the clock on the mantel from 2 rooms away. I went some days from morning to evening without speaking a word to a living soul. And I felt it in my thinking, in my recall, in the way the days started to blur into each other without the shape that conversation gives to time. I forgot what day it was. I forgot things I had known for decades. Not because my memory was failing in any medical sense, but because my mind was not being exercised, not being stretched, not being required to listen and respond and remember and engage. We are not designed to be alone. Not really. Not for long. My friend Willa, she lost her husband the same year I lost Raymond. But where I pushed myself out of the house, Willa stayed in. She said it was too hard. Going out reminded her of him. Being around people felt like pretending to be fine when she was not. I understood every word of that. I felt the same way. But I forced myself out anyway because Nana Celia had told me once, Estelle, grief needs air. It will suffocate you both if you keep it locked inside. Within 2 years of staying home, Willa had lost most of what had made her Willa. Not the sadness stayed, but the sharpness went, the quickness went. The warmth and the wit and the quick laugh that used to fill whatever room she was in. It faded quietly, like a photograph left in the sun. Conversation does things for the brain that nothing else does in quite the same way. When you talk to another person, you have to listen, really listen, and hold what they say in your mind while you formulate your response. You have to track the thread of a story. Remember what was said 3 sentences back. Find your words. Place them in the right order. Read the other person's face and voice, and adjust your own. It is complex. It is demanding. It is exactly the kind of exercise a brain needs to stay strong. I call one of my children every morning. I visit my neighbor Louise on Tuesdays. I go to church on Sundays and I sit with whoever sits near me and I talk. I go to my quilting circle when my health allows. I say hello to the woman at the pharmacy and I mean it and I listen to her answer. Reach out today. Call someone whose voice you have not heard in too long. Visit someone who is alone. Sit with someone who needs company and give them yours. Your mind will be fed by it just as surely as theirs will. We keep each other sharp. We always have. That is how we were made to live. I have never stopped learning, not for a single year of my life. And I believe that as much as any other thing I have told you, maybe more, this is the habit that has kept my mind clear at 97. I read every day. Books mostly. I have always preferred books, but newspapers too. And letters, I still write letters by hand to my grandchildren because I want them to see my handwriting and I want them to write back and give me something to read. I do the word puzzles in the newspaper every morning at the kitchen table. I learn new recipes. I ask questions about things I do not understand. I let myself be a student. Nana Celia could not read. She had never been given the chance, but she was the most curious woman I ever knew. She wanted to understand how everything worked, why the seasons turned the way they did, why certain plants healed certain ailments, why people behaved the way they behaved. She asked questions constantly, and she listened to the answers with her whole body. She was learning until the day she died. I stopped reading for almost a full year after Loretta died. Loretta and I had been reading the same books for decades and talking about them on the phone on Sunday evenings. Without her there on the other end of that phone, the books felt lonely. I put them down. I watched more television. I did less. And I felt it. The connections in my thinking, the way one idea links to another, the way a memory will call up a related memory and that one calls up another, those connections started to feel less nimble, less alive, like roads that were getting overgrown from lack of use. My granddaughter Iris brought me a book about 3 months after Loretta passed. She did not make a big moment of it. She just set it on my kitchen table and said, "Grandma, I think you'd like this one." I picked it up that evening out of politeness more than anything, but within 2 chapters I was back. The roads were clearing. I also write things down every day. Not a formal journal. I am too old to be formal about anything, but a few lines in a notebook I keep on the nightstand. What happened today, who I spoke to, what I am grateful for. what I am thinking about. Writing it down makes it real, makes it organized, makes it mine. When you write something by hand, your brain encodes it differently than when you just think it deeper, more permanently. Scientists will explain the mechanism, but I just know that the mornings I write feel cleaner than the mornings I don't. And after a week of writing, I can tell you everything that happened in it, in order, with the names and the feelings attached. Keep learning. Read something new every week. Write a few lines every evening. Ask questions. Let yourself not know things yet. A mind that keeps reaching stays young in the ways that matter. The moment it decides it already knows everything it needs to know, that is the moment it starts to close up. Don't let it close. I have saved this one for last because it is the one that holds all the others together. Without this one, the water and the light and the walking and the food and the sleep and the hands and the conversation and the reading, they all help, but they do not hold. This is the thing underneath all of it. Every morning, before I drink my water, before I open the door to the morning light, I sit still for 10 minutes. Just still. In the quiet of that farmhouse kitchen with the clock ticking on the wall and the first birds starting up outside. I fold my hands and I say out loud, because out loud makes it more real. 3 things I am grateful for from the day before. 3 specific things, not general things like I am grateful for my health or I am grateful for my family, specific things. Yesterday morning, I was grateful for the way the light came through the window at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and made a stripe of gold across the kitchen floor. I was grateful for the phone call from my great-granddaughter Lily, who told me she had passed her examination. I was grateful for the smell of the cornbread I made at noon. Small things, real things, things that actually happened. My friend Harriet, the worrier I told you about Harriet, ended every day by going over everything that had gone wrong. It is demanding. It is exactly the kind of exercise a brain needs to stay strong. I call one of my children every morning. I visit my neighbor Louise on Tuesdays. I go to church on Sundays and I sit with whoever sits near me and I talk. I go to my quilting circle when my health allows. I say hello to the woman at the pharmacy and I mean it and I listen to her answer. Reach out today. Call someone whose voice you have not heard in too long. Visit someone who is alone. Sit with someone who needs company and give them yours. Your mind will be fed by it just as surely as theirs will. We keep each other sharp. We always have. That is how we were made to live. I have never stopped learning, not for a single year of my life. And I believe that as much as any other thing I have told you, maybe more, this is the habit that has kept my mind clear at 97. I read every day, books mostly. I have always preferred books, but newspapers too. And letters, I still write letters by hand to my grandchildren because I want them to see my handwriting and I want them to write back and give me something to read. I do the word puzzles in the newspaper every morning at the kitchen table. I learn new recipes. I ask questions about things I do not understand. I let myself be a student. Nana Celia could not read. She had never been given the chance, but she was the most curious woman I ever knew. She wanted to understand how everything worked, why the seasons turned the way they did, why certain plants healed certain ailments, why people behaved the way they behaved. She asked questions constantly, and she listened to the answers with her whole body. She was learning until the day she died. I stopped reading for almost a full year after Loretta died. Loretta and I had been reading the same books for decades, and talking about them on the phone on Sunday evenings. Without her there on the other end of that phone, the books felt lonely. I put them down. I watched more television. I did less. And I felt it. The connections in my thinking, the way one idea links to another, the way a memory will call up a related memory and that one calls up another, those connections started to feel less nimble, less alive, like roads that were getting overgrown from lack of use. My granddaughter Iris brought me a book about 3 months after Loretta passed. She did not make a big moment of it. She just set it on my kitchen table and said, "Grandma, I think you'd like this one." I picked it up that evening out of politeness more than anything, but within 2 chapters I was back. The roads were clearing. I also write things down every day. Not a formal journal. I am too old to be formal about anything, but a few lines in a notebook I keep on the nightstand. What happened today? Who I spoke to? What I am grateful for? What I am thinking about? Writing it down makes it real, makes it organized, makes it mine. When you write something by hand, your brain encodes it differently than when you just think it deeper, more permanently. Scientists will explain the mechanism, but I just know that the mornings I write feel cleaner than the mornings I don't. And after a week of writing, I can tell you everything that happened in it, in order, with the names and the feelings attached. Keep learning. Read something new every week. Write a few lines every evening. Ask questions. Let yourself not know things yet. A mind that keeps reaching stays young in the ways that matter. The moment it decides it already knows everything it needs to know, that is the moment it starts to close up. Don't let it close. I have saved this one for last because it is the one that holds all the others together. Without this one, the water and the light and the walking and the food and the sleep and the hands and the conversation and the reading, they all help, but they do not hold. This is the thing underneath all of it. Every morning, before I drink my water, before I open the door to the morning light, I sit still for 10 minutes. Just still. In the quiet of that farmhouse kitchen with the clock ticking on the wall and the first birds starting up outside. I fold my hands and I say out loud, because out loud makes it more real. 3 things I am grateful for from the day before. 3 specific things, not general things like I am grateful for my health or I am grateful for my family, specific things. Yesterday morning, I was grateful for the way the light came through the window at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and made a stripe of gold across the kitchen floor. I was grateful for the phone call from my great-granddaughter Lily, who told me she had passed her examination. I was grateful for the smell of the cornbread I made at noon. Small things, real things, things that actually happened. My friend Harriet, the worrier I told you about Harriet, ended every day by going over everything that had gone wrong. Every slight, every frustration, every fear, every disappointment. She replayed them like she was trying to solve them, and she woke up the next morning already carrying all of it. Her mind was always full of the wrong things. I was the same way for years. After Raymond died, after Dot, after Thomas, I ended my days in grief and worry and regret. And those nights were terrible and those mornings were heavy. And my thinking showed it. The turning point was a very small moment. A Wednesday morning in October, a few years after Raymond passed, I was sitting at the kitchen table in the gray early light, and I was already building up the day's worries in my head when a cardinal landed on the windowsill right there on the ledge, outside the glass, and sat looking at me for almost a full minute, bright red against the gray morning. Just sitting there looking at me, I laughed. Out loud. by myself in that quiet kitchen. And in that moment, everything that had been pressing down on me lifted just slightly enough for me to take a real breath. And I thought, I am grateful for that bird. Right now, in this moment, I am grateful for that bird. That was where the habit started, with a cardinal on a windowsill on a gray Wednesday morning. A mind soaked in gratitude before sleep and before rising is a calmer mind. A mind that notices what is good is a mind that is practicing attention, the most important skill of all for keeping memories sharp. Attention is how memories are made in the first place. If you are not paying attention, the moment does not get stored. It simply passes through you and is gone. So here is the whole of it. Drink your water, stand in your light, walk every day, put your worry down, eat real food, sleep deeply, work with your hands, talk to real people. Read and write and keep learning. And every morning and every evening, find 3 things, specific, real, small things. Say them out loud, mean them. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. The creek can still run clear. I am 97 years old and I am living proof of that. I am sitting on this porch in the late afternoon light with the birds coming into the feeder and the smell of supper on the stove and every grandchild's name in my heart right where it belongs. The choice is yours. It always was. Make it tomorrow morning the moment your feet touch the floor. That is soon enough. That is the perfect time to start. Thank you for staying until the end. If this is helpful information that you would like to give a try, please like and subscribe for more powerful health advice every day. Your support means everything.